can hardly believe it. After 60 years of excuses and delays and problems getting there, I'm finally going to get to see Alaska. We board an Alaskan airliner at Pasco, Washington. We'll fly to Seattle, and then from Seattle, we'll get on another Alaska airline and continue on northward. The pilot banks over the Columbia River. We can look down and see farmland and rivers and freeways and roads, all as this dream comes closer and closer to reality as we're heading toward Alaska. In the airplane, we make small talk with a few other people, and they have something in common with us. They're all heading to Alaska to go fishing as well. The circular irrigation fields show up well with their alfalfa down below us. Then Mount Rainier shows up, and the fog bank known as Seattle, Washington, where we'll land and board another airplane on the way to Alaska. Mount Rainier is sticking out of the fog slightly. We board another airliner at Seattle and chart a course for Ketchikan, Alaska. The stewardesses come by and give us something to drink and a little package of pretzels as we push northward for Alaska. Myself, my son Dwayne, and a friend named Larry will be making this trip to Ketchikan to go fishing. Finally, I have both feet on the ground in our 50th state. We walk down a little ramp where we'll get on a bush plane to fly us on over to Prince of Wales Island, where we'll be going fishing. Our bush plane is tied to the dock, and we're almost ready to board. An immature bald eagle sits on a piling, just watching that everything goes well. The silence of Alaska is only interrupted by the sounds of eagles. We look down on the dock and see the sea anemones clinging to the dock and bush planes coming and going. This is Alaska, and bush planes are more a car up here than cars. Even Ketchikan has no road out, so this would be your transportation, and more people have a pilot's license and a driver's license in Alaska. With all the rugged country and all the water, it seems like a bush plane is the ideal form of transportation. Our luggage is being loaded on to our airplane, and we're just about ready to board. Our pilot's name is Brad, and the woman who's loading our baggage on, I asked her if she could fly that machine, and she said she could too, but we probably just wouldn't want to ride with her. But Brad, he's had years of experience and a gentle touch for the controls on this powerful little bush plane that comes up off the water time and time again during the day. skillfully, Brad has us airborne in a matter of seconds, and we'll make the short trip over to Prince of Wales Island, where we'll land in this strait over a boat basin as we move on. Brad skillfully navigates us over some wild country where we see nothing down below, just trees. With over 100 inches of rainfall, trees just grow everywhere. There's a barge heading for Prince of Wales Island. They're probably hauling supplies in since there's no real road in. The tie-down flap flops as we move across some real wild timber country. There's nothing but trees and mountains and a few snow slides, but not much sign of logging. Most of this timber has never heard the roar of a logger's chainsaw. Truly our last frontier, and the best way to see it is in a bush plane like this one. Down below us is a saltwater strait where we'll be landing in a matter of minutes. Carefully and skillfully, Brad moves us into position for that landing on the water on the strait below. And this skill can only be achieved by a lifetime of moving these controls back and forth. Most anyone that lives here lives either on or next to the water, so their only transportation is a boat or a float plane similar to the one we're coming in on. Brad banks this little airplane around and moves into position as he lowers his altitude. He's moving into position for that touchy landing on the water. And we see the place where we're going, Thorn Bay, right ahead of us. What a great landing, and this is my first time I've ever landed on water.
So how much for pilot license?
Yeah. Wow, that is nice, isn't it?
All right, here we go, guys. We're just across the bay over there.
is totally awestruck by this ride in the bush plane. Not only did we get to land on water and take off once, but we're getting the opportunity to do it the second time. He had other people. He had to land at what they call a boardwalk, a fishing resort. After that, he'll give it some throttle and will move up off the water again and land just a short distance across the bay at Thorn Bay, Alaska. We grab our personal belongings out of the small airplane, set them on the dock where we'll carry them on up and meet up with Doug to carry on with our journey. Brad will pick up another few customers if anybody wants to and fly them back to Ketchikan. We walk up the road of Thorn Bay for a short distance, and then Doug will arrive on the scene and pick us up and take us up where we'll be staying at his place. We look the sights over of Thorn Bay. There's even a little boat basin in Thorn Bay.
Since I worked on it?
No, it looks good. Those cabinets are
really
good
nice.
too.
Yeah, that guy from Halis, your friend.
Doug took a minute to show us some fool's gold he'd found in Alaska. The first thing we're going to do is go down to the boat basin and take a look at Doug's boat and go out and check a crab pot. We untie from the mooring where the boat is moored and head out to see if we can be so lucky as to catch a few crabs in the pot.
Boats have the right of way over the airplanes, thank goodness.
A very familiar sight around any place we were in Alaska were the float planes, since there's a lot of water in this area and very few roads. That's one of the favorite methods of transportation.
Okay, got it.
Does say Dennis on it, doesn't it? See what the name is, make sure we got the right one. Yeah, that's Dennis, that's him. Good. Get the color on it. This is Dennis's ball too. He's at the house.
We're anxious to see what's in the crab pot as it's hauled up from the bottom of Thorn Bay. And in it comes, and it looks like there's some crabs in it. Now, if they're just males, it looks like we have it made.
Anything legal?
Darn females, huh?
You want some gloves?
Female?
Okay.
Ain't that a male right there?
Is that a male or is that a female?
Unfortunately, the crabs were all females. Since our fishing license isn't good till the next day, Doug's going to take us out and he's going to catch us a fish for dinner, hopefully. We make our way through a very lush rainforest to a little river, and there are rivers everywhere here. Since it gets over 100 inches of rainfall a year, there's plenty of rivers. We reach the river, and Doug puts on a spinner to give it that lucky cast, and we can see some pink salmon out in the rapids trying to battle their way upstream on their final journey. This is the way nature's provided them, and they'll battle and fight their way upstream to lay those eggs and keep the species going. We can see several of these pink or humpback salmon laying in the shallow waters as they're trying to spawn right in this area. Doug finally made a lucky cast and caught a pink salmon. From there, we'll walk back out the trail and go look some huckleberries over and see if we can pick us some huckleberries. And we found lots of nice ripe huckleberries. Then back to the place where we're staying to cook our dinner and get ready for a big fishing trip tomorrow. Doug sorts out some bait, and we're getting ready to go out on the strait and see if we can catch some salmon and possibly some halibut. Past the houses of Thorn Bay and on down to the boat basin. The tide's pretty well out as we walk down the ramp to the boat basin. There are really big tides here. We climb on the boat, get ready to head out and see what we can catch in the way of fish. Doug steers us out of the calm waters of the boat basin out into the waters of the Sound.
Okay, day, night, sun, whatever, we come back in on mine.
A pair of bald eagles set in the top of a tree as we move out of Thorn Bay under cloudy skies. Bald eagles are a very common sight this time of year around this part of Alaska. A lucky feather drifts in the currents as we head on out after taking on some fuel. We're heading right for the strait. Past many islands and peninsulas as we move on out through Thorn Bay toward the strait, and all these things are covered with trees, just going right on a rock island, and most of these trees have never been touched by a logger's chainsaw. Past the last little islands, and we're soon in the open waters of the strait. And it's time to bait our hooks and see what we can catch out here. Everyone is handed a pole and a piece of bait, and so we'll bait up and be after them. A gentle swell is rolling as it looks like the sun is trying to peek through the clouds as we gently roll and start to troll for a silver salmon or a coho. The bait is carefully cut into chunks by Dwayne, and we'll see what those fish are taking today. Larry's the first to have that bait draw in a fish and bite on his hook.
We got him. Not there. Oh, nice silver too. 7 feet. For tractor. That's gold. God, big.
Larry's nice silver figured out a way to get away.
Nice catch. God dang it. We got pliers. I'm going to kick this in here so you guys can walk.
Larry's fish figured out a way to get away, but it looks like mine didn't, and it looks like a nice silver salmon.
Okay, good, thank you.
Ah, Jesus Christ, that's a nice one. I'll put it in neutral. God damn, that's a nice one. little slow on the trigger there, Tom. God damn it.
We're in some fish, and we're catching some now, as everyone's got their pole in and waiting for that special fish to bite. And there's certainly no lack of enthusiasm on the deck of the boat as we move through a school of fish.
What the hell is the matter with that? That must be the one you hooked. I never seen one like that. Never seen that.
Close enough. We'll just catch him with a net when he comes out.
My gosh.
We see a fish dancing on the surface like never we've seen before. And now we've got out of the school of fish, and so we're going to head on over across and see if we can catch a special halibut. There's some people living with little houses on little backwaters in the strait, and they either have to get to them with an airplane or a boat. So we see constant float planes moving around, and I understand there are more people in Alaska have a pilot's license than have a driver's license. A bald eagle takes to wing and soars out beyond us in his search for food. We've drifted over a reef where we're going to try for some halibut and some bottom fish, and Dwayne hooks into one almost instantly.
Got him?
Yeah.
All right. White meat, come on. White meat. Got some red meat, now we'll get some white meat.
Little rockfish, I bet.
Oh, here, Larry. Got you a halibut. Oh, itch. Lost me. God.
That's a nice throwback. You gotta watch those quills.
Yeah.
Dangerous. What do you want me to read this poem?
It may not have been a 300-pound halibut, but at least it's a nice quillback, and they are excellent eating.
Nothing.
Well, whatever it was, shredded it.
Hook you a halibut.
Doug pulled a scallop up off the bottom.
Bottom. Guy who hits bottom first has one.
Got her, huh? Good.
Got it loose.
Yeah, good.
Be patient with it.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with this.
Doug snagged on the bottom, but finally got it loose, and now it's time to go for that tedious process of letting the line back down to the bottom, hoping a big halibut will come by and swallow it.
Getting close?
Yep, drop them in.
Oh no, it's too fast. You gotta stop us. Are you on the hump?
Not yet. Go ahead.
No, it can't put in. The lead will be back too far, Larry.
Right.
You got to get right on top of the hump, and maybe even put it in reverse to stop us. Are we on top of the hump?
Yep.
Okay. Then we get.
We circle around and find the reef again, and we're going to drop our hooks back down and see if we can catch that halibut. Back down to the bottom again, and we'll jig away and try to catch one, but we find that there's a little too much current running here, so we're going to have to move. We move in close to an island, and with permission from these sea otters, we'll try it again. They're in playing next to the shore, the rocky shore of the island.
They lost him. Stop.
Right up.
Looks like a pink.
Right.
Right up. of the day catch. Oh my God! Way to go, Larry. Your first fish in Alaska. All
Knock him
right.
out and let's drop her back in again.
God damn, that place is working.
Let's try it again.
Yeah, that's just safe. Yeah, we'll go some more. Hell, who thought they'd be coming out here? I never thought they'd be out here. Where the heck out?
Yeah, look at him go.
They're in the front of the boat right now. There's off
Right
the
there.
side.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Wow. I seen that big boil. What the hell, a whale? Oh, look at that. Big rock. Awesome fish. That's powerful. Look, there's one.
No, probably no. I don't think we're going to have much for fish.
Man. Right across the front of the bow. Well, they just screeched up.
As long as they don't jump in the boat.
Yeah.
Man.
He's the biggest fish of the day.
Right
Well-
square in the middle. Front.
Put him right in the barbecuer. There goes one.
Like this boat. Woo. Man. Woo. Oh, man. Must be more than 2 or 3 of them, don't you think?
Yeah, I see 3 for sure.
Whoa. Whoa. Those things are big. Damn. Look how they can make that water boil. Oh, man. Oh, man. Wow. Right there. Yeah, beautiful. Ooh, 2 of them right there at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, 3 of them. 3 of them right there at once. Wow. They're just playing.
Yeah, that's all they're doing.
Just playing. Oh, gee whiz. Boy, they're fast. In front of the boat again.
After the porpoise show, it's time for us to get back to some serious work of fishing as we sort of head on in. Looks like one's bit on Dwayne's hook again, and it looks to be a really nice one. We'll find out.
Boy, that son of a gun sure made his presence known, huh?
Didn't jump?
I know, but he sure made a lot of racket with that reel.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Lucky Cole. Oh, it's a big one. Big one? Yeah. All right, he's done. He's done.
Wow.
Nice silver.
Great.
Hey, hey, hey. 4 is a lot better than... Hey. It's a good one.
Wow. That's a nice one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Big one. Yeah, that's a hog. Oh, that's a hog. Ooh, that's a hog. Are you ready? That's a big one. He's not ready yet. big boy.
All right, that's a big boy. That's a big one of the day. Look at that. Now we're talking.
Ah, you're talking
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that a beauty? Ooh. Nice fish.
Jerry, get that net out of the way.
All right.
I'll whack it.
Let's stop here for a second.
Ah, there's Larry and
He's not only going to take meat home, he's taking pictures.
his chum,
He's taking fruit. Yeah, that's a... Yeah,
chum salmon.
nice one. Chum.
We have just enough time left in the day to swing by and check the crab pot and see if we can catch some dinner in there too.
Wait until it stops and I'll back you up. As long as you got the boat tight and don't run into it with the motor. There?
Yep.
Straight up and down. It makes it a lot easier to pull.
Oh, and you got one too.
Thought it was empty when you put it in.
Yeah, but there must have been some smell in it.
Two females.
They're both, yeah,
Yep.
they're both
Well, we got
female.
it upside down, haven't we? Shit.
Oh, there are 3 in there, aren't there?
Yeah, there's 3 in there. How the hell did we get 3? They look like big. The one looks like a male. Where's the gate?
At first light the next morning, we head out again to see what we can catch out in the strait again.
Oh, wow. Boy, the water's nice and clear. You can sure see him.
And get her in the head, make sure
All
you're
right, God damn it. Give him an anchor. Give him an anchor.
Wow.
He's that one.
Get off. He's off, I think.
He got off.
And then he bumped.
The cloudy skies are nothing unusual for here. With over 100 inches per rain a year, you can expect some of that. We move on across the strait and see a purse seiner. First, they take the net in a little small metal boat and pull it over along the shore, and then they bump along the shore and bring it back, making a large trap to trap the fish in, a large purse. They'll pull it clear back around the boat, and then they'll slowly pull it in, catching most everything that's inside.
I'll be darned.
And he stays there until they're tight. And then he bumps as he goes. Circles.
Bumps the bank?
Yeah.
Wow.
He keeps it straight until it's tight, and then he goes bumps the bank.
When the net has been completely drug around till it makes a huge purse, then it is dragged up on the deck of the boat, and the fish are dumped on the deck of the boat. Sometimes tons of salmon brought in at one time.
Oh, that's a big one. He ripped that rod. Oh, you got a good one, Dwayne. Yeah. You got a good one there, boy. That's a big one.
How far out were you, Wayne?
After a hard day's fishing and we caught several fish, it's time for us to head in and once again check the crab pot and see what kind of critters we've got in the pot.
Oh wow. Looks like it's got some crabs.
Oh, that son of a bitch has got crabs.
Maybe not as many as it first looked like. There's a female.
Dang it.
Oh, we caught a flounder.
See the one going out? We had another one in there. It went out.
Yeah. But look at the flounder.
Female. Oh, there's got to be some nails in there, guys. Flip it over like this. Holy cow, that damn thing must have been upside down.
Female.
Gotta be some. There we go. Okay. Look at all the crabs in there. Man. What's that one?
Female.
For some reason, most everyone out there was catching only females in their crab pots. I don't know what the reason for that is, but the females have to be thrown back, and the only ones that are allowed to be kept are the larger males. And finally, we did catch one large male, but since we just have one, we'll put him back too. We'll pull into the dock and load our fish and start cleaning them. We caught several bottom fish and some salmon again today.
Okay, what is that guy?
This one would be a brown bomber or a, oh come on. We call them brown bombers, but they're quillbacks.
Quillbacks?
That one and this
Okay.
one here both.
That's quillbacks?
Yep.
And this one is what?
This is the golden eye.
The golden eye?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it may be a rough eye. There's 5 species like this that they call golden eyes,
Uh-huh.
but there's rough eye, there's short raker, there's long rakers, and I can't really tell you, I'm not that good at the species grading.
Okay. And these are what now?
Those are your silver grays.
Silver grays. Okay. And this?
That looks like maybe a lemon sole.
A sole.
Yeah, it's a
A
sole.
lemon sole. Okay. How do you tell a sole from a halibut and a flounder?
After our ocean fishing trip for 2 days, we decide to get in Doug's vehicle and drive up the road and see if we can catch some salmon at a waterfalls. And besides, there's bad weather reports and the ocean's too rough to be out on. We reach Logjam Creek and see the salmon are biting, and also they're struggling trying to beat their way up the waterfalls to get up to their spawning beds. Man, what a nice place to fish, with waterfalls above and below us, and just loads of salmon laying in the water, waiting, resting a bit before they try another assault on the waterfalls. And someone had to fish on most every minute that we were here. They were a little difficult to land here, especially since we forgot our landing net, but we'll get some of them in. These fish have stopped eating since they've got up in the fresh water, but they'll strike anything that moves, and particularly a bright colored spinner seems to work well on them. I can look out and see them just piled up, waiting for their turn to do the waterfalls and to rest a little bit. Looks like Dwayne had another one on, and it looks like Larry has the bottom. Time after time, these salmon will try to negotiate the waterfalls, and then sometimes they make it, and other times they drop back. We're slowly piling up a nice pile of fish from Logjam Creek. We'll gather up our fish and go try another spot. Everyone has caught several fish from this very nice pool, and some of those fish, when they find they can't make it up over the waterfalls, they just let the current move them back down and spawn down below the waterfalls. So they have a plan B to go for. And the others, they're coming home with us to make us a good fish feed. We reach the car, and it's time for us to have a little photo session with the fish we've caught. And we caught quite a nice bunch.
One day's catch!
The next place Doug will take us is a very special place. This is known as Hatchery Creek Falls, and we'll go down there and take a look at it. On the way, we see devil's clubs higher than your head. We get down to Hatchery Creek Falls and find a little platform where we can stand and watch the waterfalls and see these big old silver salmon trying to leap up the falls, one right after another.
There, he made it. I can't tell. Wow. Yeah.
We notice when they make that jump, that little old tail's just going 90 miles an hour. I guess when they hit the water, they want to hit it swimming, and maybe they can make it. We even had a few good-natured bets over which fish was going to make it and which wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see him?
Yeah.
Like a torpedo.
Yeah. Look at that guy.
Oh.
He didn't make it. He didn't make it. He landed on bare rock.
Wow.
Look at him. He landed on rock and fell back.
Wow. Very few of them make it up that son of a beast.
Yeah.
Seems like they can leap a little higher on this one than that other river. Look at that. Look at that.
Ooh.
God.
Wow.
There was about 4 or 5 of them at once.
Yeah.
It seems like if one try... Ooh, that was a hell of a leap.
Yeah.
I think there's another falls below this one, Dwayne. I think there's another falls right below this one.
Now there's, no, he didn't make it. They make it up to that shelf and then...
That one now, that was a take. He didn't do shit.
Yeah. Now look at that guy. He didn't go very high.
Well,
Boy, that tail is just going 1,000,000 miles an hour.
look at that one go up on the rock. Did you
Wow, yeah, and fell back
that
in.
was like a silver.
Yeah,
He went right up on the damn rock.
yeah.
Unbelievable. Oh, look at that.
There's another one on the rocks.
Another one on the rock.
Yeah.
We've had 2 go right up on the rock. Damn bear to have a field day out there.
He could stand on those rocks and grab them.
Catch him right in the air with his mouth.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of that up in Upper Alaska where the bears stood out there and caught him on movies, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe a little drink of whiskey will help us realize what's going on here. This is almost out of this world, this place. But the truth of the matter is I don't even drink whiskey, and we needed a water bottle that morning. So we found a whiskey bottle in the garbage can and filled it full of water, and it seemed to make a really good water bottle. And also we could go around the different fishing holes if someone was there and start drinking it. We even offered a drink to a few of the Alaskans, and we forgot this is Alaska, and they'll take you up on it in a second. So I'd have to tell them in both cases, oh, this is not really whiskey, it's only water. After I'd tell them it was water, then no one was ready to try a drink of it. But we rigged up and started fishing here, and are the fish ever biting? It's just one right after another. They're striking anything that hits the water, out of anger, I guess. A little ouzel came over and started feeding right next to us. This is a ouzel or a dipper, and he became a friend of Doug's. He'd come and look for Doug, and if Doug wasn't there, he didn't mess with the rest of us much. But we're catching fish, and are we ever catching fish? Just one of these big coho after another hit our lines. Sometimes we even lose our hooks in them when they decide to go down below the waterfall below us. Never seen fishing like this. Just one of those big coho after another would bite our hook, and sometimes we'd get them in and sometimes we wouldn't, and it looks like Larry got that one in, but still that fish could get away from him. And another are hitting our lures. fighting for their life, but we can pull them over and get them in, and we're going to have us a fish feed. Sometimes two of us would have one on at the same time. Looks like Larry and Dwayne both have hooked into one of these great big coho salmon. Whoops, Dwayne's got away. Spit the hook at him. And here comes Larry with his in. Another one in the bag. All the fish carcasses that are out in the water in front of us are decaying fish carcasses where people have filleted their fish and thrown the carcass back. It's supposed to give nutrients for the young fish as they hatch and start their way toward the sea. Larry's really catching the nice big old silver salmon. I walked up by the waterfall and see a little pool where these fish that can't make the waterfall drop back and lay in this little pool and rest a little bit. But it's a spot where it would be impossible for us to fish. And anyway, they need a spot to rest. A person came along who said he was a school teacher and he had a permit for subsistence fishing. So he came up and tried this hole where they're laying resting. And wow, he caught all the fish he could possibly lift up. And he said this was his first.
Did your dad get one?
Yeah.
Did he get one?
Yeah.
Oh boy, you're gonna have fish.
Daddy, you have two fish, Dad. You have
That color looks a little too.
It looks fine to me.
Nice big one, too.
Yeah.
Some of those fish, too.
Yeah, they all look good.
Looks really good.
That is fishing like I've never dreamed about in my wildest dreams. And every single time he puts that fish net in, he pulls it up all he can lift of fighting struggling fish. This subsistence fishing like he's doing is only for the people that are residents of Alaska, and you have to have lived there for a year or more before you can get this kind of permit.
What's the pink blue thing?
Oh, it's a pink?
I didn't catch a pink all day. Well, roll it. You stay right by Keegan. No, don't come over there.
Then this guy very rudely gets right out in the water we're fishing in and starts gouging around with his net. And oh, he caught another one, but it's not making us real happy to have somebody out wading around with a net in the hole where we're trying to fish. So we'll just gather up our fish and head back to the place where we're staying, and we can cook some of those fish and have a super fish dinner tonight. And as far as that guy goes, we didn't like him that well anyway. He had a haircut like a geek. We'll take a quick photo op and then back to the cabin. The next day, the ocean's still entirely too rough to go out on, so we're going to go back fishing. Meanwhile, on the way, we see an old doe and two fawns, and these are those very tiny little Sitka deer, and they're sure gentle and nice. We arrive at the fishing hole and find the fishing's just as good as ever, and it couldn't get any better here. Just one fish after another would bite our hooks till we got all the fish we could possibly want. And those big old silvers are still fighting and battling to make it over the waterfalls. This is important to them. That's part of the survival of the species. Only the strong can make it up over this waterfall, and the rest have to spawn down below. And so they're really working at it. There's just oodles and oodles of fish. The fish hatcheries already have all they can handle of them, and so these are more or less just surplus fish. They've managed to escape the gill nets and the purse seiners and all the things that eat fish out in the ocean, the birds when they're young, and then all the other fish and everything, and still an abundance of them come up the streams to spawn each year. We're going to start cleaning some of our fish here. It'll make them easier to carry out. These are all real nice, big, bright coho salmon straight out of the ocean. After fishing quite a while up at Hatchery Creek Falls, we decided to go up to a place Doug knows about called Silver Creek Falls. He said there's a lot of trout, they call them egg suckers here, that lay in these pools under the waterfall when the fish...
Oh, that's a Dolly Varden.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
I thought it was, is that what you call a dolly?
yeah, or a bull trout.
Or a bull trout?
Yeah. Great.
What's that? What is that? No, it's not a pink. It's not a pink, Larry. It's a silver, just a small one. That's a silver. That or an oversized trout. I don't know which. Not very many of them come to me.
The fish weren't biting quite as well at this pool, but yet, how could you ask for a better place to fish, where the waterfalls is right behind you, and again, the fish are trying to struggle their way up this foaming water of the waterfalls. And it looks as though Dwayne has another one on, and he'll fight him over next to shore, and we'll see what he is.
My gosh. That's a Dolly Varden again, huh? Bull trout.
We were losing daylight in a hurry, and so we have to get going. We've got a fairly long little hike out of here, and the trail is really wet and muddy. I had mud clear to my knees. I forgot to bring my rubber boots this time. We reach the vehicle while there's still some daylight left, and we can see the little Sitka deer out grazing alongside the road. We just saw lots of them, and they were real nice and gentle. The next day, the ocean's entirely too rough to try to go out there, so we're going back to Hatchery Creek Falls and try for some more of those nice big bright silver salmon. And we can see they're biting again as Larry has one on already. And Dwayne already has one on. Seems like you catch 'em nearly every cast. And then the fight is on, and their favorite trick is to try to go downstream and get down below the next waterfall where you can't get 'em. It doesn't take long for us to catch our limits of fish here again. Dwayne gets that fish off his hook, throws his line in again, and guess what? Another's on. He'll fight that one over in the shallow water and then throw out again, only to repeat the same situation time after time after time again. We're allowed 6 of these silvers and several pinks as well. And what a beauty of a place to fish, right in the roar of the waterfalls. And Larry has them on one after another again. Even though we're fishing right under the waterfalls, it doesn't seem to bother these fish one bit. They're still trying to negotiate the waterfalls. Next, it's Doug's turn to catch one of these nice monsters. Doug's fish got in these rapids is coming down toward us. He yelled, "It's a big one," and Dwayne's out to help Doug catch that fish. Uh-oh, looks as though that one got away. Looks like we have a good string of fish here, and so we're going to start cleaning them and head back out with them here real soon. Our next stop will be Black Bear Creek. Doug takes us up to Black Bear Creek so we can watch the pink salmon spawning. And the pink salmon are stacked in here almost on top each other, trying to spawn in the gravel beds. A young black bear is walking down a log. I think he's kind of considering a fish dinner to help his belly, so he'll be nice and fat for hibernation. From here, we go on to an Alaska native fishing village where the indigenous people live.
One chicken special?
Yeah.
Or can we get the chicken
I
without
believe
the
you can
soup?
get the sandwich dinner.
Yeah.
You can still get the sandwich dinner.
Yeah. If you don't have chicken, seagull will work. Okay, how much is your chicken special?
$9.95.
$9.95, and what do you get with it?
A cup of soup.
Oh,
Only
yeah.
one soup left.
Yeah. And where were you raised?
Sitka in Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii? Oh, yeah. So how you like it here?
I love it here. It's beautiful.
Oh, great, yeah. Yeah.
We've decided to treat ourselves to dinner right on the waterfront. We'll each of us order something different, and it runs about $7 a person. I chose to go for the Reuben sandwich. They're always good, and it was 7 something for that, so that wasn't too bad considering we ate on the waterfront. We came back later to eat dinner there one night, and it was like a lot of the dishes went for $100 each and stuff in this area, so we chose just to walk out. Looks like it might be a little nicer today, so we're going to go out on the ocean, and we're hoping to hook into one of those big halibut today. Doug steers us carefully out of Thorn Bay into the strait. We spot a purse seiner in the final stages of pulling the net in. The little metal boat they used to pull the end of the net over toward shore has already circled around, and they've made their purse, and now it's just a matter of pulling this huge net full of fish up on the deck of the boat. So Doug pulls us in where we can get a good watch on them. The little metal boat has pulled the net completely around, and so they'll keep tension on it. So some of these salmon don't decide to jump out and take off as they're starting to pull the net up on the boat by now. The little metal boat is still holding the tension on it as the big ship reels the net up on the deck. A crew of men tend the net and lay it on the deck so it doesn't tangle. We're starting to see a fish or two, and the water's starting to foam a little by now. Inch by inch, the net is pulled up near the ship where they can throw the fish up on the deck of the ship in a little bit. As we move up closer to take a look, we can see the float lines up on the top of the net, and then there'd be a lead line down below, and there'll be a just ton of fish in this net. As the net draws closer and closer to the main boat, we can see the water just starts to foam with the fury of all the fish that are in the net. And at this point it's critical. These fish could jump out and that would make a bad day for the fishermen. So they're being really careful to pull them up. And we can see them just thousands of fish trying to fight their way out of it. Right on the net. Pull closer and closer. Deck, and it looks like there are fish on the deck knee deep. So is the rugged life of the commercial fishermen, purse seiners in Alaska. We're going to pull in to a spot and see if we can catch us a halibut and maybe some salmon. We move into where a creek's coming out of the mountain and flowing into the strait, and there's an old structure here. I understand that was probably an old fish hatchery. We lower our hooks down to the bottom and try for a halibut and then try for a salmon, but nothing seemed to work. We move out into deeper water and someone catches a goldeye.
Good.
Pretty
Nice fish.
And Doug has one on finally, and he can tell by the way it bites that it's a halibut. So it's now a job of cranking him up off the bottom.
little one. Now let me get him to the surface and I'm going to let him drop down. Oh, he's a little one. He's a little bitty bastard.
You got him?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He's just a baby.
Oh, shit.
He's just a little tiny one. You get a little meat off him.
Oh, he's a little one.
Yeah. Gapping in the head, but let him get him flat up here. I get him to flat to the surface. Now you can get him. There you got him. Good gap. Didn't ruin any meat either. There's not much on that little guy. Look at that, the hook's popped right out.
And Doug has another one on. He pulls it a little bit and then it quits fighting, so he knows it's one of the bottom fish, not a halibut.
To make sure. That's good white meat. We put that gap.
It's right under the steering wheel, doing.
Good place to gap him. In case them hooks drop out. That's a nice bass. Look at that, hooks just dropping right out of him.
We actually drifted a long way, so we were dragging the anchor.
Is that what it was? Wind came up and that current came up. That's why we couldn't get to the bottom. We were dragging that anchor. I thought something happened.
The weather's starting to take a turn to the worst, and we're dragging the anchor and can't get our hooks to the bottom, so we know there's something in the making. And so we better get that anchor up and get that motor started and head across the strait before it gets so rough we can't cross.
you get out of this, it won't be so bad.
Yeah.
Get out of this swamp here. Although it's white capping out there.
Yeah.
Maybe she is in here. It's gonna be a long, slow ride. See that current up there.
We're starting to take a beating already, and we've only begun to go in. There's a few of those breakers that are breaking and dumping their salty green content right on the deck of our boat and hitting the windshield. The strait has a lot of severe currents and a big tide, and it looks like it's taking out all of its vengeance on us right now as we're trying to get over in the calm waters of Thorn Bay. Having worked on a commercial fishing boat, I've seen some rough seas, but I don't know as I've ever seen a beating like we're in for right now.
Oh, yeah.
Currents.
Yeah. Tremendous currents here, I guess, with the big tides.
Well, and then the wind blowing on top of it don't matter. Oh, right.
We keep saying it's going to be getting better as we get further and further in, but it's just the opposite. It's getting worse every second, but I have complete confidence in our captain. He's doing an excellent job maneuvering this boat through these rough waters, running the throttle and moving the boat around to miss the really big breakers, and only every seventh one is a nasty one. A less experienced person at that helm, and we would be in big trouble.
That hit us pretty hard. As long as we stay under us and not over the top of it. Bearcat. Ask him. Should get sucked in behind that hill pretty soon where there won't be the big bad one. Different angles for hitching.
got an open shot at it. Smooth right in here. We'll run into the next 7th wave. Here he comes, right here.
If anyone were to tell you that strait isn't big enough and can't get rough, they have another think coming, because I've never seen rougher chop. It's a good thing we have a 28-foot solid boat with a good motor and an experienced skipper aboard, or we would have been in big trouble. I've seen much bigger breakers and much bigger swells, but I've never taken a beating like this. They're coming at us so fast and they're so close together. And so it's just a matter of trying to hang on.
We haven't got very far to go. Just up at that little island up here, right? That's right ahead of us. About a mile away. Yeah, a good mile. We'll watch. We'll get a little calm spot here pretty quick, and I'll be able to tower pretty good. We're getting heat here. I gotta go slow because they come over the front and take the windshield out. Yeah. You see one coming over, make sure you cover your face so you don't get glass in it. It takes it out. One of the guys in that boat, they took out their windshield. I don't know if you heard them talking about it or not. That was something else. Yeah.
Wouldn't be so bad if they were a little farther apart, but they're just right on top of each
Right
other.
on top of each other in this shallow water. You see how they're breaking over here.
Yeah, you start taking them up over the front.
You're in trouble. This is just about the right size to take this boat's about the right size for this rough water. Got some tough ones coming up ahead of us there. That big one rolling way up there is breaking. Yeah. That's one of them 7th waves I was telling you about. It's gonna pound the shit out of us. I'll take him dead on, slow. The nasty. There he comes. Not bad. Now I should get here. We got a little bit of a flat spot. Get what I can here. Slow down. Take one coming. Take a little break here and there. Alright, baby's out. Now I should have a break again. Anybody watching the shore to see if we're moving at all?
And I'm watching the shore, we're moving.
Good. That's the main thing. It's got to go about a mile.
I am oh so having a big drink when we get back.
Well, I just think of it, you're riding a bull.
Yeah.
They're a lot more dangerous.
Yeah. I can run and get away from that stuff.
No way I'd ride a bull. There's a bad one. That's a bad one.
Fortunately enough, there's room. Yeah, there's room between those two. Rock over them.
Got a little bit of a break in the waves. Now, a little further. They're inching their way up there. Got a bad one coming at us from a different angle. Turn a little bit different. Getting out
we keep thinking we're going to be out of this soon, but the further we go, the rougher it seems to get. And so we're taking a beating like never before. The seas are taking out all its vengeance on us as we're trying to cross this strait and get in the calm waters of Thorn Bay.
We're not plowing any waves yet. We're okay. As long as they go slow. Start coming over the bow. Should be getting into that protected water here in a minute.
Yeah.
Can't believe we're getting pounded like this.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, waves.
Storm before the calm.
That's not a good one right there.
Oh, yeah. You better not say.
That wasn't a good one. Didn't like the way it pounded both sides.
No. It's going to get rougher where it starts changing again, you know?
Oh, I think we're pretty close to getting out of it. By the time I think we're out of it, boy, we get pounded.
Yeah, we're not out of it. You've got a little ways to go yet.
Yeah. This is worse than what we had out in the strait.
Yeah, you might need, actually, you know what? You might want to get off of this shelf over here and go out that way a little ways.
Looks like it's better over there than in here.
Yep. Because there's something in here that's causing
Really pounding us.
yeah. All my worldly possessions I give to my wife and whoever wants them. It's recorded, duly noted.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Take a little white water over.
Yeah.
When it starts getting blue, that's when you're taking water over. You see the blue water coming over.
Yeah. It's a little easier getting out here a little
Sure, he's
farther.
coming on the left. I think I can just send pretty much. There we go. Boy, we're a lot closer to that island. Once we get to that island, she's all easy going then. Oh, boy, there's a sloppy one. Sloppy one again. We'll get a break here in a minute. It almost reminds me
I
of
think
peacock
this is our break.
They're coming from all different ways, directions. This sloppy stuff, really bad stuff. As soon as I get a break here, I'm gonna get a little gas right now.
Oh, there's a good one.
We'll get a break here in a minute. We'll get out of it. There we got a break. Yeah.
Coming.
Top of this one.
Getting close to that shore again.
Yeah, I know. Get over here.
We're getting
Face these
rougher.
babies in the bank, yep. Awful close to that island, though.
Yeah, a mile away.
No, I don't think so now. Real close. Making headway, I don't dare watch the side because I'm looking for debris.
We're making headway, Doug.
Okay, yeah, look in there.
Yeah.
big one
As
coming.
long as we're moving at all.
Yep, we got a big one coming down at us. He's so nasty. I gotta go right into him. Yeah, probably. Right there, right? Yep, this is him. This is him. Let's go. Yeah. There we go. Look, good boy. Right on the edge of it, guys. Right on the edge. Nasty one here, Con. Short waves, that's the problem.
Yeah.
At least in the Columbia, they had them big rollers, you know. You could
Yeah.
down them and up and over, but these are
Yeah.
short, choppy little bastards.
Yeah.
They don't take but real quick ones. Yep. Dart right into them. Right on the edge of that calm weather. Water right there, I can see it.
Yeah.
A lot better up ahead of us. Feeling a little better now. Yeah. A lot better here.
After an incredibly rough sea and a rough ride for hours, we're finally in some calm water and we can all sit back and relax a little bit. Our water jugs are out of water once again, and it's time to go to a really super nice spring and refill our empty whiskey jugs with water. Doug took us around the island to see the sights, and of course one of the things I wanted to see were the salmon spawning. Even fish fight. The males seem to fight other males to get them out of there so they can be the ones with their genes carrying on in the next generation. And a trip to Alaska is never complete without seeing some of the totem poles. And there's an entire courtyard full of totem poles at this Indian fishing village. And some of these, they're rebuilding them with handmade tools. And some of the older ones are over 100 years old, still standing tall, telling the family story. Each of them are different because each family story is different. And each of them have been painstakingly carved out of a single big log. There was no one around, so we never really got the story on each of these totem poles, but it would be super interesting to find the entire story out. This one was a very nice one with a maiden being held on the totem pole. And a hound dog lays on the edge of the street, just dog-tired in the drizzling rain. It's been a totally wonderful 10 days in our last frontier, and now it's time to board a ferry and head for the airport at Ketchikan. And thanks for Doug for a trip of a lifetime, which is totally awesome. And now it's time to face reality and head back home.